Oh, wow. Thank you so much for staying with Citizen TV. The conversation goes on even during the break. Listen, we'd like to see a bit of your feedback. Let's bring them up. But there was something the Deputy President also tweeted in regards to this same conversation we're having. Let's bring that up and read it through. Then we get a reaction from my panelists here. William Samoei Ruto, that is the Deputy President of Kenya, says, we are encouraging the youth to actively engage in the ongoing national conversation on the country's economic recovery strategies. It is a patriotic duty. Nerima, it is a patriotic duty, and the Deputy President is encouraging the youth to be engaged in that country's economic recovery strategy. Is this practical when the youth themselves have not been given the platform to be the decision makers, but then they're being urged to have a conversation on the economic recovery strategies? Where do they take that conversation? Where do they even have that conversation?
True. I think the youth are already doing it. I think that there's nobody who works harder than young people. And I'm going to say that because there's a time that I asked my dad to walk through Toy Market. Most of the people who own those stalls are below the age of 35. In fact, if you find someone above 35, it's shocking. And even when we talk about the different avenues that they venture into to be able to even meet their everyday basic needs, youth are doing things separately. You know, you can be here and you have a business on Facebook, you're also selling things, you're also baking. There's no young people right now who is just doing one thing and they depend on it, like our parents. That doesn't exist. All of us are either investing somewhere, tumejoin chama, tuko kwa sako, and we are doing other business ventures as well. So I think that the youth are already patriotic in that fact.
Okay.
They haven't waited for somebody to say, okay, now you have to go and do this, this, to be part of Kenya or to feel Kenyan. But what I think we need to hear more from people in government is the ventures that young people have utilized. How can they support them even more? It's not about, even when we talk about these strategies to recover the economy, the ones who are hard hit are the youth. Those who are graduating over 1 million every year, and then they are coming to low job markets. They are not working. You're doing a job interview and there are 400 of you. And these are the realities that even our parents cannot fathom. They do not understand with the combination of a pandemic. So I think what the conversation here should be is not blaming young people for not being part of the process. They have been. In fact, if anything, they have been more involved than any other generation. What we should be concerned about is youth being at the table and actually formulating these solutions. Because I think the dynamics of the country and of the globe have changed. Markets have changed. Organizations or companies that didn't exist 5 years ago, I'm talking about even Airbnb or Uber, things that use technology, are now some of the largest companies in the world that are being utilized by mainly young people. They need to be at the table of markets. And that's what's not happening. So we have old people trying to make new solutions for the young.
Shiko, what is your view on what the Deputy President tweeted in terms of the youth joining the national conversation on strategy of economic recovery? And yet, do we have formations as a youth that then when the table is set, we have someone who can go there and speak on our behalf and give the voice of the youth? Because when the Deputy President says that the youth should take up national conversations on strategy of economic recovery, he just can't do that with people in the market. We have to have formations. We have to be organized in a certain way.
Trevor, we're organized already. And I think Nerima put that out there and said, we have an organization, or rather a consortium of youth-serving organizations. It does not mean that these are only youth that are doing advocacy. It means we have young people there who are doing a lot of finance trainings and everything. We have young people there who are doing capacity building in businesses and everything. These are some of the young people that need to be on that table, if there is any way. Because we have, you know, it's interesting how we have a president and his deputy who are very good at saying things. They are very good at PR. But when it comes to the actual doing, it's a whole different conversation. So when they're saying that young people need to be part of this, like Nerima said, we are already the biggest market when it comes to the economic recovery of this country. We are already the people they're taxing more right now. You find that the same way Nerima said, I don't want to really keep repeating, but it has to come anyway. But we as young people, you find that you get a job that honestly cannot sustain you. So you need to get other extra jobs. So you find that, like, I as Shiko do like 3 jobs, 4 jobs in a month. And at the end of the month, that money is not even enough, but it's taxed. It's really taxed highly. When you look at your payslip at the end of the month and look at how much you're giving to KRA, it's like really shocking, being that you cannot equate that to any services in this country. But then these young people that they're saying need to be patriotic enough have not been told, this is the table, this is where you people need to come in and discuss your issues. That platform is not there. Where they're discussing it, we don't know. Where they're having these conversations about recovery of the economy, we don't know. How we got here first, we were not involved. The much that we've been involved in is paying taxes, which really hurts us and which really sort of excludes us from the process of being part of this nation.
Yeah.
We are patriotic enough to work, we are patriotic enough to pay taxes, but then they've not been patriotic enough to involve us in the process.
Okay. Misari?
So what I want to say is that exactly what Shiko has said, and which goes back to what I'd said, that we pay a lot of lip service to the youth.
Yeah.
We want the youth to be involved, but to what extent and to what point? What happens when you bring the youth together, probably, get their ideas? Of course, most of them are going to be too radical and not what you're ordinarily used to. So does it end at that, at you listening to them? What happens to the implementation? How many of them are you going to have in a chain of implementing these decisions that the youth want?
Yeah.
Because you look into how, like, again, what Shika said, the president, the deputy president has already done in the country, for instance. There is a semblance of having youth in certain positions. But you have people who are more or less doing their bidding. They are not representing the youth, they are representing the position of the government, which is, at most of the time, is not something that favors the youth. Without even mentioning names, you hear youths in government making very outrageous comments, for instance, because they are just trying to, show loyalty to having been put in these positions and not really trying to implement.
Yeah.
So the deputy president's call is good, but what our interest should be is how long, how far deep is it going?
Yeah.
Does he simply want to hear what the youth has to say? Does he want to fully involve the youth in these plans? And what's going to change? Because he has been there for, is it 8 years now? And we've seen the type of youths they've worked with. We've seen how much lip service they've paid to the youth. Is it just continuing in their normal lip service to the youth? Or is there something that's really going to change this time?
Odwe?
I think, in my opinion, it's a case of, like we said, lip service. Politically, I blame the youth, but economically, I don't. Because now economics is about the policies. You look at the policies we create and all that stuff, you realize, like, for example, on the appointments, the wazees are handpicked, but the youths have to go through a very rigorous process. We've mentioned, there's a case like, for example, the National Youth Commission in BBI. Currently, we have a National Youth Council that originally was supposed to have delegates that are elected by youth from the ward level. When you talk of BBI, they are saying they will be appointed by the president. You see, so these are people who are going in not to represent the young people, but to represent the government. So you realize economically, they will talk about how they want the youth to participate. But look at the spaces they have created for the youth. Look at the opportunities that are deemed to be for the youth. The very demeaning things. The big guys are getting billion-shilling tenders during COVID. The young people are being given slashes to go. How much value will that add to a young graduate in the long run? It can't happen. You look at issues like the Youth Enterprise Fund and stuff like that. These are still elitist things. My opinion, decentralize these things. Go to the village. Stop sticking in Nairobi and in towns. When you go to the village, make the terms flexible. I have a history in banking. And the truth is, what is being offered in the so-called youth enterprise and those affirmative action, it's almost the same as the terms and conditions for the bank. Because if a bank is asking for a title deed, why would the government purport to be helping young people when they're asking for title deeds from people who don't have title deeds? It's the same thing like you tell people that you'll exempt them from taxation, and yet they don't have capital. They do not have the resources. So we have a government that speaks from both sides of the mouth, and as a result, you realize that it becomes the same circle. And that's why I come back to the young people. Have we ever sat down to realize that we are being played? And for how long are we going to continue allowing these people to play us?
Okay. Let me see what else you're saying here on Twitter. And the Deputy President continues to say that as we seek to find the most suitable diagnosis and solution to the issues afflicting Kenya, the young people should not spectate, but contribute to the discourse. All right? Let's see what else you're saying on Twitter here. There's a lot of feedback from you at Trevor Mbija at Citizen TV Kenya. Use the hashtag Daybreak, and you can also text 22422. Njenga Wakungu says, I really like Odweo Kennedy perspective. Young people must wake up and not wait for favors. They must use their numbers to fight for what they believe in. People like Tom Mboya were youths, and they brought great change in Kenya simply by fighting for their spaces, period. Let's talk about this for a bit. Njenga Wakungu is saying that we need to fight for the spaces. And Nerima, yes, we are the majority as a young people, but why is it that it is so hard to galvanize young people of an ideology? We are still in this phase where we idolize people for either their riches, their resources, where they come from, their political formations. Why is it so hard to galvanize young people around an ideology? Yet we share the same common problems. We all know them.
Right, right. Because also when we look at the state organ, the state voice, the National Youth Council, you would think this is the one space where the youth are able to come under one voice. And we are equal across board, but we are not. Because even within that agency in itself, it's underfunded. There's also political influences within it. It's very difficult to say that it exists, but with a lot of challenges. So what am I saying? Systemic. A lot of the issues that young people face right now are systemic. And sometimes I've even written about it. I believe it's intentional. Because even when you look at, say, the youth ministry, there are several offices that represent the youth. But not only that, we talk about it being the majority population, yet it's always combined with a department. Last time we were under gender and public service, and then now we're under ICT and youth. I mean, there's nothing like youth on its own. Yeah. Why is that? So I think also when we look at the way things are structured, it's very difficult to say that this is the voice for the youth, because there are so many that exist. So those fragments create that fragment in our politics. And also I'm going to blame the media. When we talk about politics, media frames it in such a way that it's always a two-horse race. So even when youth come into the fora of now voting for the first time or trying to understand politics, a lot of them are swayed into thinking they have to vote, the either or. But right now, when you look at the register of political parties, there are almost 100 of them. And there are 1,000 parties in waiting to be registered. And people have no clue. In our country, we've talked about what? OCA, we've talked about Jubilee, we can talk about four or five. I'm telling you, we might have almost 200 by 2022. But people do not hear, do not see, do not know. So even what's in front of the youth right now, so even the framing. So we cannot ignore that there's a lot of messaging that's consistent. I'm not even going to go to the front pages of the papers, because again, we only identify with certain individuals and perspectives, and it makes it hard for young people to think outside that box. And when we talk about leaders who are young, we also have to remember, back then, all the leaders were young. All of them were young. I mean, so right now we have people who have been in power for a very long time, and they don't want to leave. So they have made it to where the structures, the systems, protect them. So it becomes very difficult for youth to infiltrate. They have to form another way of organizing, but it can't be around money.
Ms. Ari, what is that other way of organizing? Because I have a platform here every Friday for youth, who are political aspirants. Yourself, you're here right now, but are the youth even listening? I mean, someone is looking at you right now and is thinking, does this one even have enough resources? Which party does he come from? Things like that. Are they even listening? How do we galvanize that youth voice?
So first, it would mean going back and getting that, other than being youths, what else brings us together? Like Nerima said, even within the youth movement itself, there are segments. There are youth who do not relate to the problem of other youth. If, for example, I'm a graduate, having come out of college into a jobless market, chances are my problems as a youth are not equal to the problems of a youth who probably dropped out at Form 4. If I'm a youth in Nairobi, my problems, chances are they're not the same as the problems of a youth who was probably raised up country. So, which goes back to what I was saying about giving lip service. We make very fancy names for organizations, we give funding to them, but do we even have reports that show what this stratification causes and how each segment within the youth movement can be helped? Because another thing which most people try to not tell the youth,
Yeah.
is that we can't put our hope in politics, that we have to go out there and fight for it ourselves.
Yeah.
I mean, politics is the primary way of organizing governance. And when we organize governance and pay taxes to the state, then it's only fair that we have expectations on them. So it would mean that for us to get the help, not even the help, it's a matter of rights.
Yeah.
For us to ensure that the youth is elevated to a point whereby they become reasonable citizens, they can fully participate in the affairs of the state and all. Let us have the structures that we put work, which brings into perspectives.
Yeah.
There's the issue of creating spaces.
Yeah.
There's the alternative spaces that are being created. Siasa Place, Wakenya Pamoja, all these things that we are trying to do to give us alternative voices. That does not mean that as the youth we have to abandon probably the institutionalized spaces.
Yeah.
We have to belong to each and every one of them, and we do not have to segment them. We don't have to say that we only have to be a nominated part to represent the youth.
Yeah.
You don't only have to say you can only represent the youth by starting as an MCA. If there was somebody who was going for presidency and is a youth, and is not only running because he's a youth, he has more to offer than being a youth, then let it, for all intents and purposes, go for it, and he'll have that support.
Okay.
So let us create spaces as alternative voices that can talk for us as youth, because it's going to allow that segmented nature to be represented. There's also going to be speaking for a particular group of youths. And then let's also get into the institutionalized spaces.
Okay. Shiko, what is your view on how to galvanize the youth voice?
I don't know.
Shiko,
Come again, I've not heard you, Trevor.
we were talking about how to galvanize the youth voice, being the majority. How do we galvanize our voice such that a decision made by the youth is almost final?
I think organizing starts by us, and I think young people have started organizing, but we have to always be very keen on how the structures look like. I know we have platforms where young people are engaging. I see the good work Siasa Place is doing in organizing young people in different counties and making them understand what the structures of governance look like. But now it calls for us as young people to rise, and it calls for us as young people to say, this politics of the day is equal to our future. It's equal to how we live the next long life, because the struggles that we've been put through by Jubilee government, we might not be able to undo them 10, 20 years to come. But we might be able to organize and start creating a sensible field of governance that has young people, not just young people who are put there, because I know we have so many young people in government, but some of them are just pawns. But we can organize and have young people who understand what they're doing in there, young people who understand the power of the seats they have, and young people who understand the power of serving the people they serve. So if we are able to do that, then we might start getting alternatives. We might start understanding how to solve our political dilemmas that we have.
All right. Oduweyo?
For me,
Galvanizing the youth voice.
the youth voice, the first thing we need to do is, as young people, we need to intellectually detach ourselves from the mental slavery that has been created. We live in a hole where certain things have been made to act that way. Yeah. So the first thing we need to do is to delink and detach ourselves completely from that. And then when you're in a position, create an opportunity. Like Nerima is Siasa, that's an opportunity to advance an ideal. Through advancing those ideals, that's when we are able to share what we know and bring people together around an ideology, so that we get away from the tribe, the political parties, and all that stuff. Another thing I would like to say is that, and this is a call I make to the young people, sometimes I feel like most of us are scammers and frauds, because scammers and frauds are the ones who want to benefit without incurring a price, paying the price or incurring a cost. I always tell people, you can never achieve anything extraordinary by being ordinary. You have to step out of that comfort zone and walk the extraordinary path. Great men and women don't become great through conformity. Most of them become great through revolt. That's why people like Rosa Parks were able to achieve that. That's why people like Wangari Maathai were able to achieve that, because they revolted against a system that was oppressing the majority. And that's what we need to do today. Because what I know today is that we've never been in a better position as a country or as a people or as young people to make change. Because you see, we are in a politically confused environment where the system is self-destructing There's never been a time when the system is fighting itself from all corners, political parties. So there's a gap that if young people can come together, it's very easy for us to occupy that space. Because as these people are fighting, there's space there. And Kenyans are seeing what is happening.
Yeah.
So this is the easiest time because there's a lot of corruption. Go to the people and sensitize them. Sell yourself as the alternative. Because there is someone who is telling you that you're part of the conversation, but he's not bringing an alternative. He has the means to change lives, but he's not. He's telling you stories. You don't have the means, but you are there with the people, and you're able to help them see the real thing that it is.
Okay.
So that can really help us move forward as young people.
All right, let's see what else you're saying on Twitter here. And Isaac, first, Isaac Karomo Muchungi here on my tweet. It's not the one I'm reading right now. There's something on my that has just been sent through. It says, my Mamau were outnumbered. They did not have enough resources. The youths must start early. Any youth who wants to run for the seat right now should be on the ground, door-to-door campaign. Let's not be lazy. That's Isaac Karomo Muchungi. He says he's running for Kiambaa constituency by-election. Now, let's see what else you're saying here. Siganga Collins says, Trevor, the country has no platform for the youth. The government is not ready for the youth at all. Anything created for youth is an avenue for misappropriation of resources. Painfully, youths are growing on basis of tribal and political inclinations. So sad. Okay? Jacob Babere says, youth and national development priorities are upside down. And clogging tunnels, social media name tarnishing, handout takers, come hecklers for hire. Ask the panelists how many youth in their WhatsApp are registered in civil society groups. And that is what we were talking about earlier on, Nerima. How are we organized? Yes, there are some that are organized like yourself, but you're not the only, you can't carry the entire 70% of the population.
No, I cannot.
So we have a body that then brings all of you together.
That's what we are trying to start and structure, but no. And also the fact that even part of our organization, one of our pillars is the mentorship aspect of it. Because even when we talk about organizing needs some form of, I don't want to, it's not an institution, but there needs to be some basis of its existence, which you have to support youth to be able to do that. I'm talking about, even when we talk about documentation, you know, for something to exist, or even an office, say, not a physical office, but for youth to be able to organize, there needs to be goals and there needs to be targets and how to get to those goals. So at the same time, youth can be very passionate about things and also expect things to happen quickly, but that's not necessarily so. So we have to also encourage youth, but also give them a realistic perspective of change takes time and it can be slow. And these are some of the structures you can put in place to exist. Because I'm going to talk about the quote that Kennedy talks about all the time. He's mentioned it, I think, 2-3 times, about the coin having 3 sides. The rolling side is the one that you're on, and you talk about it going far, but it must stop. It goes far, but not for long. It must land. Okay? And so we have to teach youth that where it's going to land, how are you going to capitalize on that landing? We need to make change, but not in waves. There's a way that change happens, and it's consistently and with persistence. So I think that we are creating them. Youth serving organizations is one. It's just been formalized, and I believe there are going to be much more, especially when we're coming toward an election. Kennedy has mentioned the opportunity, and a lot of youth are seeing it. Okay.
Let's see, Amartha 3 says the youth shouldn't wait to be brought to the table. They must take themselves there. No babysitting. They shouldn't wait for NASA or CORE and so forth. Form yours and move forward. That is related, Misare, to another tweet here from Biro Isaac Okelo, which I have on my laptop here. The structure of our political leadership is the factor that has silenced the youth. The best language the old in leadership understand is revolution. He says, take an example of Raila, Orengo, and the likes during their youthful life. If we don't revolt, we will forever be sidelined. Do you agree with this statement?
I agree with that statement, and it reminds me of something we were discussing off camera. When you are saying that what change is probably one going to bring if they are going into a party that exists. You look at these people, they revolted from within structures. Then in a way, it brought change to these structures. Remember when you look into the history of Raila leaving a party, then having to leave his parliamentary seat, then forming another party and running on it and winning, it made some parties readjust their rules. So you can still bring change from within, because the other truth is their youths have really put in work in some of these political parties. How fair is it going to be for them to be expected to walk away and start from scratch again? So that's why I was saying that it is okay to create alternative spaces, and it remains very much okay as well to fight for spaces within the institutionalized systems that you already have.
Okay.
There can be change and meaningful change that can come from within.
Okay.
What we don't do, what we must not do, like we're discussing here, is we must not resign to fate. That since, like we mentioned, I'm a member of ODM, and we believe that the ODM decisions are made somewhere and it has to be followed, then I resign that I'm going to run as an independent or form my own political party or toe the party line. I mean, these people who we now feel are running the party in a certain way were themselves revolting at some point within structures. So I can raise my voice within that party, and probably that's where the change will come from, for that party and for the country.
All right.
Yes.
Chico, how should this revolt look like? Because we're not advocating for violence in any way, but how should the revolt look like so that there's a bit of change?
So maybe we need to start by disbanding our political party structures because they're quite illegal. But anyway, for me, I think we don't need to do things the same way the likes of Baba, Raila, or Orengo, anyone else who was involved in the struggle did. I think we can decide to organize around the platforms that we have that are more accessible, that are more available to young people. And I think we have one key thing that sometimes, I hate it that people look at it like as always a negative, but we have digital media platforms. This can be the strongest tool of organizing for young people. I see different campaigns that have been run online. I see how the Arab Spring started. If it were not for people sharing that woman burned herself down, then the conversation would not have been a global conversation. And I see the Me Too campaign, how it came to be. I see the Black Lives Matter campaign, how it came to be. It is about us organizing around our issues and making use of the platforms that we have. Maybe we just need to start a Vote Out All the Thieves campaign. And if we start that, can we mobilize our young people to stand up and say, I am unemployed because someone looted money that was supposed to do ABCD. I am unemployed because I elected someone who did not know what they were supposed to go do, so that they serve me and I get platforms and structures that can enable me to work, set up my business, and actually have sustainable businesses. I am unable to eat because someone has looted money that was supposed to create food security. Yeah. I'm unable to go to school because someone has looted my CDF. I am unable to access medical health because someone seated somewhere looted all the money that was supposed to go back and serve this. I am unable to do my day-to-day life because money that we give to KRA is never accounted for. Nobody keeps them accountable because the people who are supposed to be elected to go keep them accountable have looted everything and do not recognize that this money was supposed to go serve the people who pay the tax. So just organizing around that and just having a campaign that speaks to the hearts of young people and meeting them at their points of need, meeting them at their points of struggle.
Okay. Odwe?
For me, what I will say is that we have a system and a government that is not ready and interested in youth leadership because these are radical new ideas that can take the country forward. But these people, because they have their own vested interest that they are protecting, they have to ensure that they put a stumbling block to ensure that the youth and the new ideas do not come into fruition. Personally, I would say change is both at an individual and collective level. During my corporate perambulations, I came across something called network marketing, where there is that circle of influence. I personally believe, as a person privileged enough to have information, to have exposure, to have different ideas, when we sit to, if I can influence one person, that person influences another. So it starts with us. If every one young person here can influence one, the other one influences two, we create a circle of empowered and positively influenced people. So you realize that when it comes to elections, we won't be talking about history. We are overly reliant on history. In 1990s, our problem was the Constitution. Yes, so we thank those who fought for the Constitution. We cannot use the same narrative up to 1963 when we have, up to 2063 when we are talking about Agenda 2063 that was crafted by people who will not be there in 2063. So as young people, we need to realize that, yes, they did something. Thank you very much. But today, our problems are no longer constitutional. We are talking about leadership, we are talking governance, we are talking economic. To a level, we live in a world where people just need a space. People are no longer interested in you coming to pick people in the village to take them to the military or the police. They used to do it. People are not interested. People just want a space where they can express themselves, express their talent, and then be able to advance themselves. Actually, most young people, you talk to them, most young people are not interested in employment. But because that is what, one, we have been conditioned to believe, the system has created a single line of thought to a level where that's the main promise that is being made.
Yeah.
Any opportunities for empowerment of the people, for self-sustainability, always has a lot of stumbling blocks and bottlenecks to a level where it's very difficult for you to succumb to maneuver that path and achieve your purpose. So as young people, it's about starting with us.
Okay.
Me as a person, Nerima as a person. As we move forward, we create a circle. And as you create a circle, that's how it flows.
Okay.
That's the easiest way.
All right, let's see what else you're saying on Twitter here. Joel Nabruk says, coming together of youth groups and forming a bigger consortium is a way of galvanizing ourselves and speaking out our ideologies, and this will help inform the system understand that we are ready to be counted, okay? Shidambasi Tom says, it's believed that when you want to control human beings, the best practical method that has worked is to starve them, which our politicians are proudly using. Okay. Mukindia says opportunities are never given to anybody, but one has to grab one. It's important for young people to know that leaders are never to be organized, but must take their leadership position by defining their role. You just need a vision. Still see a lot of feedback here that I have on my laptop here. Biro Isaac Okello says the structure of a political leadership is the factor that has silenced the youths. And we also have Masika Joseville says psychophancy is very contentious among the youth. Youth should support people with good ideologies rather than supporting outright political conmanship. And Nerima, this is another issue, this whole issue of psychophancy and resource deployment. How then do we instill integrity in the young people? It's no longer there anymore. It doesn't matter how you made your money. In fact, the more money you have, the better. Nobody questions, not even people back in the village. You live there one day, come back driving big cars, building big houses. You're the bazoo, so to speak. Nobody questions how these resources were acquired. How then do we instill integrity in the young people such that you can see that this is not what you're supposed to glorify?
Yeah, but Trevor, it's hard to instill, and you've already mentioned, when we see particular leaders rising in wealth and we're not sure where that wealth came from. When the president tried to start this declare your wealth with public civil servants,
yeah,
and people did not even pick up that story. It was just completely ignored. And that has to start from the head. It has to start from our president, wanting to care about the way corruption is rampant in this country and following through with it. Because if we have people in positions of power and they continue to abuse that office, even though in our constitution, chapter 6 is just on integrity and leadership, then we are abusing our very constitution that is supposed to protect us.
Yeah.
So for me, I'm going to say that the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. It's very difficult for us to talk about youth being a completely different breed from the tree that they grew up from. So it's also unfair, because even when we look at the environment, it's not encouraged. You can walk into a government building, even like Afia House or something, and then you're seeing a suggestion box to report any corruption. No corruption in this zone, corruption-free zone. But what's that going to do anybody? So even if you report, what's going to happen? Almost nothing.
Okay.
So there has to be a follow-through, and a follow-through that's taken seriously.
Okay.
And then now we can start talking about engaging the youth to support that.
Okay. I have only 4 minutes for you guys for closing remarks. Misari, I'll start with you. What is the closing remark?
My closing remark first is that we must not want to hold the youth in a higher position, especially with matters integrity. The youth learned this from somewhere. They didn't wake up greedy. So if you're going to say that, how do we ensure the youths have integrity and are not greedy, then you have to look into the bigger picture. Where did the problem start? Yeah. How far back are we going into seeing where the problem is? The second thing I'd want to say is that there comes a time when we can't sit on the sidelines any further and complain of the problems. We can walk in there and try to bring the solutions that we think we have. So I'd encourage any youth out there who thinks they have solutions. and that they can change it by running for office, to run for that office.
Okay.
The hurdles are many, but it's possible.
All right. Shiko, closing remarks?
Regardless of where you come from, I think the struggles we have as a youth of this country are almost similar. We are all looking for opportunities, and the opportunities are there. We just need to grab them. Our tomorrow will never come, so we have to grab it today, and we have to understand that the choices we make at the ballot determine how our future looks like and the future of our kids. We have to rise against the politics of thuggery. We have to rise against the organization of manipulation and tribal warlords. We have to have a voice as a young people, and we have to demand for our opportunities and our services as need be.
Okay. Odweyo, closing remarks, 1 minute.
As a substantive aspirant in the Butula parliamentary seat, I want to say something to the young people of this country. And I say that as someone who has intentions, and I know I'll be representing the people of Butula after August 9th, 2022. Politicians need money to succeed. Leaders, as a leader, yes, you need, but that's not the principal thing that makes you a leader. A leader needs a vision. A leader needs faith in God. A leader needs faith in themselves, belief. Once you believe in what you're doing, and then from that, you need to have the ability to organize, mobilize resources. With that, you are able to actualize your dream. So the young people lazima wajitokeze, because as a leader, lazima ujitokeze, ujichague kwanza, ujitokeze, ndio uchaguliwe.
Okay.
That's the only way.
All right, Nerima?
Get out of your bubble. Choose what role you play in the peace puzzle of this country and decide.
All right. Nerima Wako, Executive Director, Siasa Place, Shiko Kihika, Founder, Tribalist Youth, Misare Njaga, Senate Aspirant Migori, and Kennedy Odweyo, Governance and Policy Expert, and also you're running for parliamentary seat in 2022 in Butula.
Yes.
All the best to you young people out there.
Thank you.
Go ye and do us proud. All right, that's where we leave it for now. My name is Trevor Mbije. It's always a pleasure having you here with us. Coming up next is DJ GG on the decks. It's a gospel edition. You know how we do every Friday. Have a good one and have a fantastic weekend ahead. Bye for now.